Every week, there's more people here than at full council normally. Welcome everybody. It's going to be a busy agenda. We have a number of speakers, which we'll work our way through. But I will start with the evacuation procedure. We're not expecting any evacuations tonight, so if there is an alarm, it will be a genuine alarm. There are two exits. There's one at the rear and there's one that came in. Our forming up point is on the car park. If the alarm does go off, obviously leave in an orderly manner. Form up on the car park. Please don't leave until you're advised to do so by one of the officers, because we have a list of everyone who's in the building, and if someone just disappears after the fire and rescue turn up, we don't want to kind of come in looking for someone who's gone off home. So if you do that, that'd be much appreciated. Apologies for absence. I've got my list. Here we go. Yeah, I've got it here.
Councillor
Yeah, we've got
Jarvis.
okay, yes, so Councillor Simpson, so Councillor Baby, Councillor Jarvis, so Councillor Clues, Councillor Dervick, so Councillor Hobley, and Councillor Gilmont, sub Councillor Watson. Okay. Are you happy to accept all of those? Are there any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests to be declared in anything that's on tonight's agenda? Right, Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Chair. Non-pecuniary advantage, 6E. I'm on Dordon Parish Council, and obviously this planning application was brought to the attention of the Parish Council, but I haven't voted upon it at Parish Council, so it's just to make everyone.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here as guest speaker tonight, but I'd like to surround my non-pecuniary interests in the agenda on the Brenside at Butcher Shop.
That's the same for me, Chair. 6F, I've attended animal rights protests and a number of residents' meetings regarding the application.
Okay, thank you.
Same as Councillor Hobley.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bevan.
Chair, I've attended some parish meetings and residents' meetings about the same subject in the past.
Okay, thank you. Right, we have a number of people registered to speak. What we would do is, as we go through the actions, we will let that person know that they're up to speak. We'll ask them to move to the speaker's chair. There's usually two chairs there, but obviously so many here. And then we will brief you on what the rules around public speaking, and then we'll take it from there. So next item is minutes of the meeting of the board held on the 20th of May. Has everybody had a chance to look at a copy of those? Anyone in the room? Are there any comments on anything in those minutes?
I'll move them.
Okay, moved by Councillor Humphreys. Second is, yeah. Excellent. All those in favour? Right, that's unanimous. Excellent. Thank you very much. Right, the first formal item on tonight's agenda is the adoption of the Polesworth Neighbourhood Plan. We've got a report. If we read this one, or is there any questions? That's answered.
I should declare an interest because I chaired. Yes, I would like to enthusiastically advocate its adoption.
Second.
Okay.
I don't know that I'm allowed to oppose it because I.
So. That's it.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to enthusiastically applaud the fact that it's actually got to this stage, and there's an awful lot of work that's been mentioned. I read it. I always read it each time. It gets better with reading. 2, 3. The key things that the residents were most ranked as most important: quality of environment and green spaces. And 2, 6. The thing that most people ranked as less important for the area was, surprisingly, building and development. Now, going forward, there is an allocation for 2,000 houses in Dordon and Polesworth on H4. So we need to be mindful of everybody's wishes and to make sure that any development that comes forward is in keeping with the Dordon neighbourhood plan and the Polesworth neighbourhood plan. So, thank you, well done.
Okay, thank Councillor Ridley for her comments. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Councillor Waffles.
Yeah, just to clarify, I wasn't on the neighbourhood plan group, but as chair, as part of chair of Polesworth Parish Council, as well as my hat here today as a Polesworth West Borough Councillor, I'd like to thank all of those involved, especially Councillor Parsons for chairing and Councillor Henley for all of the work that she's done on the historic side of it, because that was massive and colossal amount of work. And also the public that were involved as well throughout. Thank you.
And I think we all recognise that in this chamber, the importance of neighbourhood plans, you know, they represent the views of the local residents, and I would advocate any parish council, if they haven't already got a local plan, to actually to have one. Okay, so I have a proposal. Well, I've got a proposal. I'll take councillor Moss's proposal. Second,
So, Chair, am I allowed to propose it? Because I was.
well, I'll tell you what. Let's take councillor Phillips's proposal.
Close it.
Yeah. Councillor Waffles has seconded it. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Right, we're going to move on now to the actual planning applications on tonight's agenda. I'm going to change the running order slightly because I suspect many people in the audience are here for item 6F as opposed to the other. So I'm going to bring 6F to the front, if that's okay with the board, and give people as much of their evening back as possible. So we're going to take the Butcher Shop, Glenside, Ansley Lane, Arley first. Can you speak up first? Jeff? Yeah. So Jeff, over to yourself.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll leave up that slide, probably mostly one where members of the public are fully aware of. Just a location site to show you where it is in Old Arley, and members will certainly be familiar with the site. The report is a further report following a deferral at the last meeting. And that deferral was to enable consultation to take place on additional information and detail that had been submitted just prior to that committee date or board date. That happened. A limited amount of consultation took place on that additional information. And you'll see from the report that further detail and dismission of details was actually submitted afterwards. We had to prepare a supplementary report, and that is in front of you tonight. It was circulated at the end of last week, which brings you right up to date with all of the information and details as submitted by the applicants at the time. It's quite a substantial report. It repeats a lot of what is already in the main published report, so that people can make sense of it. But that supplementary report was circulated before the weekend. However, I have to tell you, late this afternoon, it's about 4:30, further additional information was submitted. I'll leave that with you, Mr. Chairman, and the board to how they're going to resolve that. My own view is that based on the information that you have within the published reports, that is both the main report, the previous report that you had, and the supplementary report, that a recommendation tonight, as printed, can remain. And you'll see from the report, even at that stage, the Highway Authority was continuing to object, and my environmental health officer colleagues still felt very, very uncomfortable with the application. So, Mr. Chairman, my recommendation remains. If that's agreed by members, the board will need to consider the expediency of enforcement action, and that is covered through an additional supplementary report, which will be looked at in part 2, the private part of this agenda. I'll leave to that, Mr. Chairman. If members know a lot of the detail of that, the important point to make is that further information has come in at 4:30 this afternoon, and I'll leave that with you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. Just one, so Carolyn Mackey is going to speak, so if you want to, what I would just follow up on that information coming in very late. You will recall at our last meeting, this was one of the concerns from the deferment. So it was not to get it in at the 11th hour and cause another deferral. So my recommendation to the board is that we proceed with the information that's in front of us in the reports. Is the board happy with that? Okay. Yeah. So here we'll talk to you, or explain to you about public speaking.
Good evening. Hello. You have 3 minutes in total to speak. I'll remind you, 2 minutes junction, as you've got 1 minute remaining. I'll start and clock when you start speaking. Drawing number 7 does not accommodate the size of vehicles used. It does not accommodate pedestrian safety. The concrete planter cannot replace the substantial garden and wall removed without permission. The submerged tanks are infeasible and the FSA and staff parking cannot accommodate the vehicles currently using the site. Drawing 8 and 9, the fan is noisy, causing noise pollution up to 100 metres away from the site. Thistledown Farm experiences noise nuisance causing sleep disturbance to the children living there and to residents around the site. The proposed air conditioning will further industrialise the building and it is not in line with the neighbourhood plan that states businesses should match the village aesthetic. Drawing 614, 693 and 696. The average blood volume of an adult sheep is 3.6 litres. If 1,200 sheep are slaughtered weekly, this equates to 4,320 litres. The blood is collected by a tanker fortnightly. The size tank does not hold 8,630 litres and so would need emptying more frequently, increasing HGV traffic from the lane. Drawing 614, 698 illustrates the issues experienced by residents and drivers using the lane. The public footpath is shown as part of the proposed route for vehicles. This is unacceptable. The turning space between the gates and the public footpath is not wide enough or deep enough for the safe entry and exit of the premises. Drawing 614, 699 shows proposed movement of the gates and installation of tactile paving that will further industrialise the exterior of the site. This is against the neighbourhood plan, as previously stated. The inclusion of the public footpath in the proposal is unacceptable. Drawing 614, 700. It is not possible to improve the visibility for vehicles using the site, other road users or pedestrians. Drawing 614, 706. The dimensions of this container cannot. Okay, I'll skip that one and move to the end. I would offer the conclusion that the residents were not regarded whatsoever in the decision to industrialise the site. The owner stated that he has long-term involvement in the slaughter of animals and so very well knew the level of foul odour and huge disruption it would cause us. The fact that he went ahead regardless confirms not only his disregard but his disrespect for the people who live here and who have invested in homes in a lovely rural setting and whose mental health and well-being has been severely affected by this disrespect. Thank you.
So, you just come back to the chair, and the reason I do it, I'll explain what. Does the board have any questions?
Sorry.
Okay, don't, Councillor Bells.
Thank you. So were you in residence before the applicant took over the site?
I was, I've lived there for 12 years.
So can you describe the difference? I mean, you know, is it something you'd already got used to? What's happened since?
Well, no, I'd lived there for 3 years before I understood there was any sort of facility at the rear of the butcher shop. I used the butcher shop weekly. I bought all of my meat, cheese, pies there. And it was only because I asked one of the employees in the butcher shop how they knew where the animals came from that he explained that they actually slaughtered them behind the shop. And before that had no.
And presumably that's now changed in the ways that you've just described. So what, from the residents' point of view, what do you think could be done to rectify or improve the situation?
Really, it needs to go back to how it was prior to the industrialisation.
because it didn't have any impact on us and it provided a very valuable community asset. And so that's what we would ideally like to see.
Thank you. Joey, will make comment or did you have a question?
No, it's okay. I'm sorry, Councillor. Sorry, thanks, Carolyn. I just wanted to ask, I haven't seen the new aircon unit that's been fitted at the abattoir. And I just wanted just a comment really of, have you noticed additional noise since the unit's been fitted as well?
It hasn't been running because there hasn't been anything going on there, but during the testing, we didn't know what the sound was until we saw that it had been installed. But yes, there was a noise impact from that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
But any other questions? Not just you want to make, I'll do that after. I'll bring the other speaker. Okay, thank you very much. There's no more questions. Okay, we have one more speaker on this, and that is Faraz Siddiq. Again, we'll explain the rules. We'll go through this a few times this evening. I dare say.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes in total to speak. I'll remind you at 2 minutes that you've got 1 minute remaining. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you, Chair, meeting members. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant. I would like to begin by respectfully reminding everyone present that the proposal before you consider the space of minor external amendments. These include the retention of the external shutters, construction of the ground, to the delivery area, installation of new doors, roof coverings to the existing animal pens, as well as the provision of new animal pens, storage areas for refuse and hay and straw, and the establishment of a new site office. We appreciate the council's view of the application, and we acknowledge that there are 3 key areas of concern that have been raised. Allow me to address each briefly. The road safety audit, this has been implemented to carry out the work, but it takes us a period of time of about 3 weeks to get this information. This has been asked, but normally what our consultant John Davis stated, that the RSA is normally requested typically as part of the section 278 agreement and are often secured by planning condition. So this is normally a secondary item that's required, but this can be produced and is being produced at this moment in time. Vehicle tracking and refrigerated routes. The Council Transportation Department has requested additional tracking information. In response, we have tracked the manoeuvres of a 12-metre HGV exiting the site, even with the vehicle is parked in the area opposite the exit. The tracking demonstrates that an HGV can safely and effectively exit the site. This confirms that the proposed operations will not compromise highway safety or truck access. So this report was sent at 4:30. And you've got to appreciate that there was additional information requested by environmental and highways, and this is how quick we could get it. There's still some information outstanding. Environmental services requirements. We acknowledge that the environmental services have requested further detail in the form of a noise report and a noise management plan in order to reach a conclusive position in the application. We are actively working to provide this and
1 minute remaining.
Meet all environmental and operational standards. Given these points, we respectfully submit that a deferment is both reasonable and necessary in this case. This will allow time for the preparation and submission of the requested documentation, ensuring that both environmental and highway concerns are addressed in full. We strongly believe that deferring the application rather than reaching a premature decision is in the best interest for all stakeholders. It will allow for a comprehensive and informed valuation, ensuring that the final determination is both fair and based on complete and accurate information. Thank you once again for your time and consideration. We trust the committee will agree that deferring the most appropriate course of action under this circumstance.
Thank you. Steve, any questions?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a quick one on 9.27. You've stated it at the beginning of your speech, sorry, that it was about roller shutters and whatnot. It's on 9.27. The roller shutters have been removed from the submitted plans, but they do remain installed on site. So is it a planning application that involves the shutters, or Is it not?
We've advised the change to immediate. We've advised the client to remove the shutters, and that will be the process that we do once we've made a decision on the application. So, there's some form of security that's required there, and I've advised put the internal shutters in the perforation in accordance with town policy, so that would be a better way of doing that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your clarity. Thanks, Chair.
Any other questions, councillor Bell?
It's on your request for a deferment. Were you representing the clients at the last meeting? So you'll remember at the last meeting, we were very reluctant to defer them because the information was late coming in. And we made it very clear that we would not be happy to do that again. Now, just taking the highways issues alone, there are other issues. There's been, to my knowledge, at least 3, if not 4 highways objections. And that goes back a long way. So there's been a lot of time for you to respond to highways. So if we were to even consider deferment this time, what sort of, this could keep going on. You could do this at the next meeting and the next meeting, we would never get a decision. So what's your response to that? Why wasn't the highways information provided earlier?
I think one of the aspects is when speaking to our consultant, John Davies, and what he stated that the RSA that's required is a process that's carried out by independent people. So he can't do that himself. It's got to be done independently. So that has come forward, and normally, as he said, section 278 covers that. Once the decision has been made for planning, that is normally done as a condition. But he said in order to produce that now, because that it was requested just lately, that he can do that. We've implemented it now, but we do need a 3-week period to get that across to you safely in order that it covers the points for yourself.
Thank you. Councillor Clues.
Thank you, Ben. I was actually the councillor that asked you when we was online, would the papers be here? And you made a promise that we would be here. I believe it was by 12 o'clock today. So I'm sorry, Chair, I will not be supporting it.
Thank you. That's probably another time, councillor.
Just as a point of clarity, Chair, I don't know if this would be up to you, Jeff. I understand what's being said about the section, whatever it is that provides the road traffic assessment, but that comes as a result of planning permission being granted. So surely we should take the highways objections on board, just for clarity, just to see where we stand legally. I don't know.
I don't think that's a question necessarily for this meeting. Sorry, for yourself, because you're not a member of the board as such. So we'll come back to that. But your point's made. I think your point's noted. That's what was.
Yeah, it's just on the back of what's already been said, really. Based on the fact that you've just said, sorry, I can't use the mic and to you. I'm really ignorant. But based on the fact that you assured us that it would be there by 12 o'clock, and now you're saying that it was, well, to paraphrase, unfair to ask for the highway stuff that would take a long time to do. I don't understand why it was going to be okay for 12 o'clock and now it's not okay. So just wanted a bit of clarity as to how that, if you knew that it was going to take a while and that independent people were on board, then why give the assurance? Thank you.
Can I just explain? So what's happened, we've sent some information back to both environmental and transportation. And what they've said is they've asked for additional information. Does that make sense? So it's something that they've said, well, we want this addition to it. So that's why we're asking for different, that's the other reason. And once those 2 elements are produced, I mean, one of the examples is the extraction system that needs to go up through the roof rather than going through the rear. But the main aspect is they want a noise assessment. So we need that time to do the noise assessment. And that was asked for before you said. So that's the other news.
No response.
Yeah.
Can you just clarify when you learned of the request?
This was literally a couple of days prior. So I think Thursday last week was the last email that we got in order to say that here's the comments back from environmental services. And then obviously we haven't got the time period to produce that quick enough.
And you didn't know about it before?
No.
Thank you.
So thank you. As your question can ask, but your questions to an officer, not the speaker. So we'll come back to your question if that's okay. So just apologies. It wasn't that it was being, it's just not for the speaker, it was for an officer, and we'll
I've got another one.
Doing
Then.
that. Okay.
I think
Is that to the speaker?
it is, yeah.
Okay.
With how a noise assessment, you saying a noise assessment needs to be done. Present, the abattoir's closed. I'm right in saying that it's still closed. So
Thanks.
how would we get an accurate noise assessment from somewhere that's not operating?
The noise assessment is more to do with the extraction system. So you'd operate it as an extraction system, and then they do a noise assessment in order to prove that it's below the decibel requirement.
Right.
So the design's done by the, he's done the design, and in order to hit the correct decibels, he just do an assessment, do a reading, say that it does hit the requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for the speaker? See any hands? Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll come back to our debate. So, Councillor, if you wanted to make it as the member, yeah?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair, members of the committee and fellow residents. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here as the local Labour councillor to stand with the residents in firm opposition to the proposed abattoir development in our village. There are multiple serious grounds for refusing this application, which I will outline now. First and most urgently, the Highways Authority has continuously objected to planning, stating that the site is not safe for the volume and large type of large lorries that would need to access it. Beyond that, there is an additional deepening concern that these lorries cannot safely turn within the site. They often have to reverse in from the main road. Local residents view this as not only highly impractical but dangerous too. Many of these residents have to frequently walk along the pavement directly adjacent to that road. Families, children and elderly people. The presence of reversing HGVs in such close proximity is a real and present risk to pedestrian safety. As stated in HGV regulations, livestock trailers have a noted impact on visibility, particularly when reversing. As such, spotters, vehicle cameras and sensors are encouraged to ensure that animals are not harmed. These protections also support traffic and pedestrians, keeping them safe from blind spots caused by the rigid construction of livestock trailers. This is a small village, not an industrial estate, and such traffic movements are entirely inappropriate. Lorries are also frequently blocking access for other traffic, causing disruption and frustration for residents, just trying to go about their daily lives. Second, the appearance and the scale of the proposed development are completely at odds with the rural village. The use of industrial shutters, large metal gates and village-style roof windows may be common in commercial or industrial zones, but they're not suited to our countryside setting. This would disrupt the rural character, contravening the local design guidance policy NW12, the National Policy Framework, Chapter 12, Paragraph 130, and Chapter 16, Paragraph 192. This guidance requires new developments to reflect and respect the character of their surroundings. Thirdly, I must raise a significant concern regarding the certificate of lawfulness issued for this site. It is understood that this was granted on the basis of the current use is a continuation of the previous business. However, I find this statement was misleading, false or incomplete. The council has the power to revoke the certificate under Article 39 of the Town and Country Planning Development Management Procedure, Order 2015. The previous business slaughtered roughly about 200 animals each week. We estimate that based on the volume of traffic that residents saw on the TNS site, slaughtered between 800 and 1200 animals each week that it was open. Let me remind the committee it is a criminal offence to knowingly provide false or misleading information in support of a certificate. If this has not happened, not only could the certificate be revoked, but the applicant could face legal consequences. This must be taken seriously, and I ask if there is any doubt at all, this committee resolves that the matter is investigated thoroughly and referred to the relevant authority. Finally, this community has come together, not out of resistance to change, but a shared belief in the safety, identity and well-being of our village. With the support of the Highways Authority, local and national planning policy and the voice of local residents behind us, I ask you today to say clearly this application is not suitable for this location. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a question for Jeff? Officers, relating to 278, section 278 agreement, I think was really the question was leading.
Yes, sorry, I'll ask that first. So, Jeff, sorry, this is one is for you. Thank you, Jeff. Where do we stand with that comment about the traffic? Because does that come as part of a planning permission being granted? Or is the highways objection alone sufficient?
The Highways Authority has objected, as you say, on numerous occasions. One of their concerns is road safety, and a lot of issues make up that particular concern, and it's been expressed by the residents. Usually, that would be covered through a section 278 agreement, which is under the Highways Act, not the Planning Act. So the planning permission would be granted, and they would also then have to go to the Highway Authority to get an agreement under section 278 has been raised. That's a separate agreement, a separate process, and the two sometimes don't run in parallel, sometimes they do. Now, there are two different pieces of legislation and they're two different things. In this particular case, the Highway Authority has always asked for a road safety audit up front, if I can put it that way, because of the safety issues. And they want to see those worked through before they're prepared to say they approve or they don't approve. So therefore, that does happen. And so therefore, in this particular case, I think the concern from the Highway Authority, given that they've objected on safety grounds on several occasions now, means that you are still able to make that recommendation. I'm still able to make that recommendation refusal, a highway refusal, without, because there's not a section, there's not an RSA there, a road safety audit there.
Thanks, Jeff.
Another question?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Chair. It's my last one. I just wanted to echo Councillor Jackson's thoughts and thanks to the residents. Thanks to, I think a case like this planning application really shows the beauty of local politics and how when our residents are most in need of us, of our representation, that we give our residents that. So Councillor Bell, Councillor Humphreys, with the ever persistent Councillor Jackson, who has been fantastic with this for the residents' sake. I think it's well worth remembering and how hard people have worked on it. So to the planning board as well. The residents have come again today. I would like to move that we make a decision this evening on this, despite a request to defer again. Like Councillor Clues has said, this could go, you know, how many times could this happen? I can't support this application, but I just wanted to thank the residents for their hard work, the speaker, for your, you know, undying dedication to this. It's really, really important. And just to remind people that there is material planning reasons why this shouldn't go ahead. And I'll leave it at that, Chair. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moffat.
I'd just like to second Councillor Hobley's proposal to make a decision this evening. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Councillor Bell?
Yeah, in support of both councillors wanting the decision this evening, I'd like to propose the officer's recommendation of refusal. I think the highways objection and indeed the objections from our own environmental health is very significant in this case.
Councillor Officers.
Just like second that proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we have a request from the applicant for a deferral. Is anyone willing to that wish to propose a deferral? Okay, so I've had a recommendation for the officers opinion of refusal. I've had a seconder of that. All those in favour of refusal? Unanimous and carried as a refusal. Thank you very much. Okay, so for those that were here for the, I'm welcome to stay and listen to the others, or we'll give you a couple of minutes if you want to. You don't have to say, if you want to leave, we'll give you a couple of minutes if people want to go.
Caroline, you're going to be on the way out.
Just let one of you clear the room. Right, and now we revert back to the agenda and back to today, which is the Clayton Stables Equine Centre, Leaf Lane, Watermore. Oh, there we go. One on the street. What's going on? Oh, there's still this. What's the deal back? Like, what's the deal back? Yeah, sorry. That's why I still really want to. This is the come back.
Probably called the tidal wave of getting out of things.
Nothing in the samosas on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Veggie. Carnival, right? There'll be carnival from now on.
I've got something.
Carnivores. Golly.
No speakers on this item, have we? So it's just your report. Sure, there hasn't yet.
What's it? Brain cells.
Smell.
Okay, so all order, we're all back on the agenda. So this is the plan application for Dunton Stables Equine Centre, Bodymoor Lane. Yes.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, this is deferred for, because an amended plan came in shortly before the last meeting, to expand the site, expand the red line, I should say. And that's the plan that's up in front of you on the screen now, the larger site. It was also deferred so that members could visit the site, and that was undertaken 3 or 4 weeks ago by several members, and a note of that site visit is attached to the report. As a result of the amended site plan, if plan permission is granted tonight, then clearly the conditions that refer to the old plan will have to be substituted with the new plan numbers, wherever that is reference to the old site plan. Just need to confirm, and this has been confirmed over the weekend, that the application is for 6 caravans. 6 caravans. That's either a static or a tourer on each pitch. It's not for 12. It's for 6 caravans. So there'd be 1 caravan on each pitch, either a static or a tourer. So one of the conditions that's recommended to you will have to be changed as well to reflect that particular position. An objection has come in as a result of reconsultation, and that came in at the end of last week and has been circulated to you already at the end of that week. The previous report, Mr. Chairman, went through this case in somewhat great detail, particularly looking at greenbelt matters, because of the introduction of grey-belt land within the greenbelt. And this obviously was taken forward, as you know, when we deferred a similar case on grey-belt land issue for some member training. And that member training has now taken place. Officers conclude that the land here is previously developed land, it's PDL, and that it is grey-belt land in the green belt. So having reached that point, it's then necessary to assess whether the conditions which are set out in para 155 of the NPPF are satisfied such that the proposal is not inappropriate development or it's inappropriate development. And as you'll realise from that training, all 4 conditions of paragraph 155 have to be met, have to be satisfied. And those conditions are set out in 8.8, the previous report, which is Appendix A. Officers concluded that that was the case, and that as such, the proposal is not inappropriate development in the greenbelt. And as a consequence, it would not attract a greenbelt reason for refusal. In other words, it's dealt with as a non-greenbelt case. And that was explained quite fully in the previous report. The report also looked at other potential harms that could arise. And you'll see from the report that that was extremely limited. 5.27 of Appendix A gives you a concluding paragraph on what we consider to be the harms are. As a consequence, as members will know, that had to be balanced against the applicant's considerations, which is all spelled out in 8.28 to 8.32 of the previous previous board meeting at Appendix A. They carry significant weight. I can't put a weight lower than that. It is significant weight. And that means in the final planning balance, the recommendation is to approve. If members disagree with officers' assessments, then they should say why and refer to the relevant evidence to support their case. And we've had this in numerous matters now, in previous proposals, where we have asked for your evidence to support a reason for refusal. Even then, a level of harm needs to be attributed to that particular matter. What level of harm are you going to give to the harm? Is it limited, moderate, significant, or substantial? again, what evidence have you got to say, if you think it's substantial, what evidence have you got to say it's substantial? We've come to the view it's limited. And then you have to balance that harm against the applicant's considerations. They're saying in this particular case, the applicant's considerations are significant. So if there is any harm that members are going to find here, does it amount to significant harm or greater than significant harm to outweigh the considerations which are being put forward by the applicant? Members may have concern under Red Part B of 155, and that's paragraph 8.8 of Appendix A. And this is the one that refers to there is a demonstrable unmet need for the type of development proposed. Again, I would refer you to the most up-to-date planning inspector's decision in this borough, only a few months ago, at the end of last year. That's attached as an appendix, Appendix F, and particularly referred to paras 30 to 34, where the inspector quite clearly says that we have not got a 5-year housing supply, and we haven't got deliverable sites, and we cannot offer alternatives, and that there was no prospect at that time of further policies or planning policies or allocations coming forward to actually rectify that situation. Officers would point out that that position has not altered. That has not altered. We have not got a 5-year housing, 5-year supply of land for gypsies and travellers. Members may well say that, okay, you're going to be doing a local plan review in September, October, and that obviously a new gypsy and traveller assessment will be taking place at that time. Two things I'd say to that, Mr. Chairman. First of all, you have to take a decision tonight on the information and evidence you have you've got in front of you tonight. You cannot speculate what might happen in September or October. And secondly, in September, October, that paper will be an options paper. It's even an options paper. It will not be draft policy. It will carry extremely limited weight. And that's the reason why I'm saying you tonight that the position which the planning inspector has set out, and I've referred to the paragraphs, has not altered. And the other one where you may have concern is the sustainability issue, and which is paragraph condition C of 155. Now we've covered that in the previous report, and that's the other area where members may have different view. If you do have a different view, we need to know what evidence you have on which to base that view. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to go into this in any greater detail. So I know that members will have questions and wish to debate the issue. And we'll listen to what's being said and then come back to you as necessary.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Answers?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jeff. Question that I have, a site, traveller's site that I'm familiar with is Alvcote. And there, the plots, of which there are quite a number, actually allow more than one caravan. Become allowed to, more than one caravan has been allowed. Indeed, a lot of them have 2 caravans. How hard is this, the stipulation that there will be 6 caravans on this site, essentially? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant has actually stated that's what he wants. And that is unusual. Normally I say it's 2 caravans per pitch, but he has asked for 6, and that will be, if your plan permission is granted, that will be translated into a condition which can obviously be enforced.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? See any? Sorry, can I just clarify a point? You mentioned that we don't have a 5-year supply. My understanding is we've got, you're absolutely correct, we are going through a review of the local development framework, which will look at all of these policies. But my understanding is that we do currently have a 5-year supply. So could you clarify that?
I don't where you get that understanding from, Mr. Chairman. The appeal decision, the inspector quite categorically says we have not got a 5-year housing supply for gypsies and travellers, and that position has not changed because no further gypsy and traveller assessment has been made since that time, the end of last year, and there's been no publication of any document or any draft policy, even in draft form, for that purpose. There's been no allocations and there are no alternative sites being put forward. That's the reason why I'm saying I'm absolutely clear on this, Mr. Chairman. There isn't that particular issue is not being satisfied. It's not changed at all.
Councillor Bell first, then Councillor Ridley, then Councillor Humphries.
Far be it for me to disagree with the planning inspector. But if we haven't got a statement of need, and I will say we do not know how many travellers sites we've got, because being a neighbour to Purley Glebe, we do not know how many travellers are on that site, and it fluctuates from day to day. So how can anyone say that we have or have not got a 5-year supply, because we haven't got any of the parameters that will tell us the answer to that question? So I just feel that that's just mad.
Really?
Thank you, Chair. As I understand it, our DPD, our traveller and gypsy policy is currently being reviewed anyway. And under what Councillor Bell says, really, we are looking at intensification of gypsy sites currently. So there are many more active sites that we do have going forward. There are much more accommodation than we planned for effectively. And certainly in the Kingsbury one, where we lost the appeal, that was much more of a sustainable location. It was actually in the Greenbelt, not previously developed land, as far as I understand it. And I think certainly at the minute we are looking at our policy on gypsy travellers, and you know that is something that we are actively doing. So I am concerned basically about our policy, the PPTS, which I went to the site visit there. It's very close to the M42. It's very noisy. It's unsustainable. There are no paths to the school, as far as I understand it. I think the site's going to be occupied by toddlers and young children, as well as elderly people. And I'm not sure whether that is a sustainable site, really. Previous background is child protection. I would not want my child walking along that path or certainly playing in that area. And I think that the pollution, the air pollution from the motorway, and the unsustainability of the location certainly is a complete difference to the one that we were concerned about last time. So that they would be my concerns in relation to sustainability and child health and welfare.
Thank you. Councillor Humphries?
Yeah, Chair, I am a little bit concerned because if you look at 8.29, it said, I know the local plan was prepared in 2019 and that's some years ago and things moved rapidly. For a need for a minimum of 19 pitches between 2019 and 2033. And at some stage we've obviously filled. And if I just look along and take one site alone, the one at Kingsbury, it's got on appeal, it had permission for one site. In Osprey, at Flavel Farm, there's permission for 1 pitch. There's 3 there now with 2 more planned. And the site at Kingsbury, there's 3 there now. So it's never ending. And I thought it would be said to me before, there has to be a beginning and an end as far as I'm concerned. And if 19 pitches was a minimum, could we have 10,000 or could it be 500 or could it be 50? Yeah, there has to be something that we've got to be able to aim for, then we can work for it. And I think we have to listen to the fact that we are looking at a review. And at this moment, it's untenable as far as I can see. I can't support this. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Mine's more of a question, really. I don't know if I've missed it, Chair, but what happens after the 3 years? It's a 3-year implementation limit, so what happens after the 3 years?
Yeah.
They have to commence development within three
Oh,
years.
sorry.
Yeah, it's not the same as all planning applications, yeah. It's normal.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say, I think I support what Councillor Ridley and Councillor Bell have said. Yeah, I think that's valid points, and I think that I could quite support their argument.
Is that about the sustainable location and the concerns there? Because I think
Especially as Councillor Ridley said, yeah, I think that what she said was about its sustainability and especially the path to any school or any way to get to the village in a safe manner. It seems a bit restricted.
is that Mr. Ramley, it's 155 paragraph C, isn't it? The development must be in a sustainable location. I think that if I'm reading people's concerns right, that's what people are concerned about, the sustainable location. Councillor Jens.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Chair. I'm afraid I wasn't able to go on the site visit, but I did know the site well. And I've got to find myself in total agreement with Councillor Ridley that I think the site is unsustainable as far as I'm concerned. I like my children or grandchildren walking to school on those roads. There's no public transport there. I agree with what you said about the M42 as well. The equality. So yeah, I can't support this either. I'm afraid I just can't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions or comments on the board? I can't see any more. So the officer's obviously recommendation is for approval. Do we have an alternative recommendation? So I read from the thing that people are looking at. Sorry, Councillor Griff.
Yeah, I recommend refusal on this one.
Okay, do I have a second? Well, firstly, do I have a proposer for approval? We'll go around just to double check. So no, I can't see anyone. Do I have, I've had a proposer for a refusal. Do I have a seconder?
Chairman, listening, it's not an area that I know well, but what I've read in the documents and what I've heard from members, I can definitely understand their concern and the reasoning. And from what in particular Councillor Bell and Ridley has said, that I'm happy to second. Thank you.
Okay, so I've got Mr. Brown.
Before we take a vote, Mr. Chairman, I think members ought to know the actual reason for refusal and the policy reasons which are actually going into that refusal reason, and the evidence to support it.
Okay, well, if I've understood people correct, and please shout out if I've not, I think the for refusal will be based on 155 section C, sustainability of the location of the development. I think that was members' concerns, if I've understood people correctly. I'm seeing nods, seeing approvals. Okay, so based on that recommendation for refusal, it doesn't meet 155 paragraph C or section C of the appendix A, then can we go for a vote? All those in favour of refusal? Any against? Any abstentions? Carried. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and then move on to the next application, which is the land between Holmfield and Oakdean for the erection of 2 3-bedroom bungalows. And I believe, Mr. Beverley, you're back to speak to us. I know you're familiar, but we'll just go through the speaking again.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not very much to add because clearly this was deferred last time. As I've said, certain members could take a look at grey belt land, the grey belt land issue, and as occurred, that frame stuff occurred last week. Again, here, officers agree it's previously developed land. There's grey belt land in the green belt. However, that does not mean to say it's inappropriate development. And as in the previous case, we have to ensure that all 4 conditions of paragraph 155 have to be satisfied. Now, the report, Mr. Chairman, goes into some detail referring to past appeal decisions, 3 appeal decisions. I've got all the references of the paragraph numbers in there. But basically, following on from from what's just been said in respect of the previous case, it's the sustainability issue that is again the main point here. Officers have indicated that in all the reports up to you so far, and that has been supported by inspectors. This is not in a village. It's not in a sustainable location. It's outside of any settlement boundary defined by local plan policy 2, and therefore this does not satisfy condition C of paragraph 155, which is the case that you just talked about.
Thank you. We'll go to the speaker first. Yeah, we'll go to Ms. Beverley first, Colin, and then I'll come back to you.
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes in total to speak. I'll let you know when there's 1 minute outstanding. So I'll start the clock when you can start speaking.
Good evening, members. Can I please start by drawing your attention to the officer's new report, Observations 2.1. Members are aware of section 13 of the NPPF that inappropriate development is harmful to the green belt and that it should not be approved except in very special circumstances. Paragraph 153 of Appendix B, on the other hand, if it is not inappropriate development, then it is, by definition, not harmful to the green belt, and there is thus no green belt refusal reason available. 2.1. The proposal is for the new built development. This is inappropriate development unless it falls into one of the exceptions outlined in the NPPF paragraph 154, 155 and 160. These are the officer's words. In the board report, repeat one of the exceptions. The new NPPF says councils should firstly prioritise previously developed land, then grey belt land. Paragraph 155 starts by saying should also not be regarded as inappropriate, meaning paragraph 154 in itself already means the application must not be inappropriate development in the green belt. So you do not have to have 2 justifications. If it's not inappropriate, it's not inappropriate. If we do look at the unmet cases, the officer says the council over the last 8 years points to 24 permissions for self-builds. Out of the 24 applications that are noted, only actually 8 are self-build.
You have 1 minute outstanding.
The other 16 are not, they're just normal applications. The sustainability. The site is within easy walking distance of Kersley End Village. It has a medical centre, pharmacy, post office, 2 grocery shops, fish and chip shop, and another fast food outlet, and 2 schools. There is also 64 buses a day into Coventry and 2 into Nuneaton. In a recent past application, 4 new houses were allowed in Bennett Road North, further away from the village than my site. My wife and I are both retired. We hardly ever use a car. I even sold mine because I didn't need it. So it is in a sustainable location, a lot more so than what the Gypsy one was. As I said, 154 is satisfied. It's in a suitable location.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Beverley. Do we have any questions for Mr. Beverley? Councillor Bell first and then Councillor Hayfield. Oh no, okay, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for all the references, because I think you've really done a lot of research on this. But could you just say in simple words, I mean, there's been, is it 3 or 4 appeals? Why is it different now from where it was before?
Because the actual planning policy that the new government introduced says previously developed land, if it's not substantial harm to the openness of the green belt is not inappropriate. And I've also, sorry, can I add just something? There is open fields at the back, yes, I'll admit that, but working with the Woodland Trust, I've planted a new woodland of 600 square metres as a buffer between the land and the open fields at the back. As you can see, they've all grown in a short space of time. I've actually built a whole new woodland that protects the openness at the back. The site is part of the houses that are already there. So there's no harm to the openness.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions? Any other comments? Okay, can't see any. So we have a recommendation from the officers for approval. Refusal based on 155 and from a sustainability perspective. Do I have any other proposals for that? Councillor Hayfield.
Thank you, Chair. I've known this site for a long time, I would assume, or a councillor for the area for a long time as well. I don't agree with the officer's view that this is an unsustainable location. It's a long ribbon development. There's been other properties along Bennetts Road North that have had housing infill, far more than the two houses here. To me, it just makes absolute sense when we're short of houses or to be able to sort of build in this space. And I'll propose that planning permission is granted for this.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just follow up. So do I have anyone proposing refusal? I don't see anyone. I've had a proposal for acceptance. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bell or Councillor Waffles? Okay. You want to speak? Okay, sorry. Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up with what Councillor Hayfield was saying. I find it astonishing, as these applications are coming next to each other, that the Gipsy Travellers site was seen to be sustainable. And now we've got a site that's got a bus every 4 buses an hour. That's better than outside my house, with the main bus route through North Warwickshire. And it's thought to be not sustainable. And there's lots of houses in there, some of which we've given permission for in recent years. So I must have thought they were sustainable then. So absolutely, I don't agree that this is not an unsustainable site. Happy to second if necessary.
Okay, thank you. So I have a proposer and a seconder. Shall we go to a vote? All those in favour? Oh, sorry.
Can I just bring that, please, Mr. Chairman? I think the bus services has been misunderstood. It's bus services from Kersley, not from this site. Secondly, 3 inspectors on different occasions, 3 different inspectors have all said this is an unsustainable location. That is because it's not within a defined village in policy LP2 of the development plan, and is well outside of the development boundaries of Forlongley, which is the nearest development boundary that we have. That is the reason why. So therefore you are suggesting, if you go with an approval tonight, you are going against local plan policy 2 in your own development plans.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hunt.
One proposal, Chair.
Okay, so stand by the proposal. Do you stand by the seconding?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so understood, Mr. Brown. We understood, but the recommendation of the board. Well, let's go to a vote then. Who is in favour of granting? Those in favour? All those against? Yeah, you've got 1 against, and any abstentions? 4 abstentions. That's carried.
Mr. Chairman, how are you going to deal with conditions? Do you want officers to draft conditions and circulate them to the proposer or the seconder, or do you want someone to delegate that completely to officers?
I think it based on that thing, I think it should go.
I think as long as the chair and deputy chair of planning are happy with the conditions.
Okay. Okay, yeah, let's do that then, Mr. Brown, to the chair and deputy chair. Okay, thank you. Right, I'm going to move on to the next application, which is the land that is 230 metres west of Marston. The farm is battery energy storage sites, and we have two speakers who are going to share their time. We've got Alan Wright and Lincoln Shackleton. As we do, Jeff, yeah, you should sit there. Yeah, if you could have your report.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is further deferral. The site plan and aerial photographs up there on the site, on the screen. Members of the site visit, so they should be familiar with the setting of those features that you see on the screen in front of you. This item was referred to at the last meeting, and there was a very lengthy Q&A session on fire safety. And that resulted in 2 additional documents being submitted to you. We have a briefing note, a fire safety briefing note, which is included in the papers in front of you. And then there was an addendum, which was circulated at the end of last week on overhead lines. So you should have both of those with you. I'm not going to repeat the reasoning behind the Greenbelt arguments and conclusion reached in the previous report. Just to say that officers have found this to be grey belt land in the Greenbelt, and the proposed development satisfies the conditions of paragraph 155 of the NPPF, thus leading there to being no Greenbelt refusal applicable because it is not inappropriate development. The main thrust of the whole conversation last time was to do with fire safety, but I just want to make 2 or 3 points again. They're all covered in the previous report, paragraphs 541 to 545. The first is to remind members of the remit of this board. You are a planning authority, we're not a fire services authority. In other words, we're looking at the planning merits of a case, not the fire safety merits of a case. The fire safety issues and details and specifications and operational arrangements we looked after by other regulatory authorities. Members who sit on the board regularly will understand that in respect of other licensing regimes, gambling, alcohol, licensing, and even the building regulations. There are separate legislative avenues which you've got to go through, and an applicant has to conform with all of those. It's also noteworthy, secondly, that Warwickshire Fire Service, Fire Rescue Service, has not objected to the application. The Leeds Local Flood Authority has not objected to the application. National Grid has not objected to the planning application. There were concerns about the layout. As members saw from the previous report, those have all been taken on board, such that the Fire Services Authority has no objection. There was full engagement with the applicant and the West Warwickshire Fire Rescue Service, as is required by planning policy guidance. That before planning application is undertaken. They have done so. They've had to change the layout, as I said again, as a result of that. And so therefore the plans that you have in front of you meet the fire services requirements from a planning perspective. And also, as a planning authority and a planning board, you know that we can use planning conditions, proposed planning conditions. And that's within their remit to agree operational details. This was discussed at the last meeting. And you'll see from the recommendation that's on page 6C72, at that stage, we added in the clause to condition 11. The original condition just had battery storage safety management plan, which is quite common practice in terms of approvals for the battery energy storage systems. But we added in a disaster recovery plan as well. I'm happy to look at that condition again, Mr. Chairman. And if it helps members, if it helps members considerably to overcome their concerns, then I'd be prepared to add into that a fire risk management plan. That a lot of the detail that might be submitted to the Warwickshire Fire Rescue Services before the site becomes operational is made known to you as a planning board. When that comes in, we will consult the Warwickshire Fire Rescue Services and see what they have to say, and changes can be made. We'll also and we'll deal with it that way as a normal discharge of conditions. But I'm happy to add that in. That is unusual. And I've not seen it in another planning commission for a BES or an appeal decision. If it helps members to pass the line, in other words, they feel more comfortable with the fire safety issue, if that's in, and I'm prepared to recommend that to you. I think, as with the other cases, Mr. Chairman, if you are considering a refusal, then again, what is the local plan policy reason for refusal? And secondly, what compelling evidence, which is what the inspectors use in their appeal decisions, have you in front of you in terms of the papers which have actually been submitted to you that will make you take a different view? So there has to be a local plan policy reason, and there has to be evidence, and in terms of the inspectors, compelling evidence to say that substantiates the reason for refusal. I'll leave it there, Mr. Chairman, because I know the speakers will want to speak, and I suspect you're going to have a few questions, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay. Right. I think you're familiar with it, the speaking, but we'll tell you once again.
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes between yourselves. I'll start the clock when you start speaking and give you a reminder at 2 minutes.
Thank you, members. Good afternoon. I'm Luke Shackle, Development Manager at PACE. Team was first conceived back in 2021, where the PACE Grids team identified capacity at Hamsall substation. Using this knowledge, we began locating technical viable areas using both local and national planning policy, which led us to our site. Since that stage, we've engaged with North Warwickshire throughout the process, initially with a pre-application to help steer the shape of the development, and then, once submitted, working with statutory consultees to refine the scheme further. There are no objections from any statutory consultee. I'll hand over to my colleague Callum to discuss the plan and merits further.
Thank you once again, members. I trust you've now read through the fire safety briefing notes in detail. For clarity, my primary role in this project was planning, not fire safety. We consulted multiple fire safety specialists to develop the OBSMP, which fed into the overall layout presented. All material planning criteria has been met at this stage and should be the main consideration. As Jeff reiterate what Jeff said, other regulatory bodies handle fire safety and operational risk, such as the local fire and rescue service, the Health and Safety Executive, who oversees electrical safety and construction safety under CDM regulations, building control, and then internally for us, insurers and risk assessors, who hold us as developers accountable for the fire safety standards during procurement phases. Thereby, it's not for the planning system to duplicate that oversight, but to ensure the land use is appropriate in principle. We therefore ask that this application is considered solely on its planning merits, with confidence that the technical matters are in the right hands. To reaffirm the case officer's report, our site is compliant with the NFCC guidance, has had no objections from the local fire chief, and includes sealed drainage approved by the environmental agency, ultimately following best practice for fire safety and monitoring. Whilst the UK has had substantial battery energy storage, energy storage system capacity of 4.7 gigawatts, there has only been one incident reported at a fully operational site, namely Carnier Road in 2020. That's 0.4% of the total UK best capacity. The other fires that might be cited, Cirencester and Thurrock, occurred during the construction phase and involved systems that were not yet operational or aligned with the current NFCC guidance. As developers, we take battery safety very seriously, as is clear from all of your opinions as well. We welcome Conditions 11's comprehensive battery safety management plan, and we are also open to additional conditions and informatives, such as the fire risk management plan. Completely open to any sort of debate. We like to work with you as a board. Thank you very much for your time and consideration today.
Thank you. Questions? That's all.
It's not so much a question really, it's just to thank you for your adherence to what we've asked for, because it's seen from previous, it's nice to have the deadlines met. You had a bit of a grilling last time, I think, you know, I'm not going to do that this time, so thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Just for clarity, I accept that fire regulation is not our responsibility. However, we're being put by both you and Mr Brown to not consider fire safety. Do you really think it's reasonable that the planning board does not consider the safety of its residents as part of its decision?
Apologies if that appeared sort of misconceited in what I'm saying. I just wanted to keep it to plan merits, but obviously battery fire safety is a material to the actual outcome of the application, but it's more in terms of the guidance that we follow. So we consider the spacing. We consider the spacing, the access, the provision of water on site, the consultation with the fire chief themselves, and even at the consultation events, we allow the public some capacity to talk on this matter. I mean, you know, we want to take your comments on board, obviously, but we just want to keep it to what is material.
Any more questions? I mean, you know, well, and I know I was one of those who was being quite prolific around fire safety, because lithium ion is a relatively new, not new, but in this scale, a relatively new technology. And when those batteries hit thermal runaway, that they are very difficult, got special equipment to extinguish. And what I was interested in was, what were your plans within the containers? Is it water mist? Is it foam? Is it what? Because that would fundamentally change. On your application, I notice Appendix C seems to show some different routes. Because one of the concerns was the fire engine having to drive past potential fires to get to the water source. Has that changed on Appendix C? Jeff, I don't know if we can put Appendix C. Couldn't quite work out whether that was the new road layout. Seems to take you into the fisheries and then back along and round one of that very long lake. And are the lakes the water source? Yeah, yes, at the bottom one.
Yes, the lakes are the water source.
Right, okay. So I thought originally there was going to be a separate water source, but the proposal is that the lakes would be the water source for the I think one of the comments I would like, and I know probably Mr. Brown and I have a fundamental kind of query on this, because I would argue in Appendix A that actually paragraph 160 actually trumps 154 and 155, and that says when located in the greenbelt, elements of many renewable energy projects will compromise inappropriate development. So I know we often talk about 154 and 155 and meeting all the criteria within those, but there's a paragraph right at the end that says just because it's renewables doesn't mean it trumps greenbelt. So I guess the debate or the reference is, we've defined it as grey belt, but does that not trump the 154 and 155 conversations?
All the whole MPPF, Mr. Chairman, should be treated as a whole, and this is represent. I've set that out in previous cases which you've seen tonight. Yes, I find that it is not clear. I'll agree with you on that. However, 160 says that may not be inappropriate development. Sorry, may be inappropriate development. Even if you find it is inappropriate development, as I've said on previous cases, you have to put a level of harm that. Is your landscape harm, your visual harm, your openness harm? Where is that harm? Is it limited, moderate, significant, or substantial? So therefore, you've got to go through that exercise, and what evidence have you got to say it's limited, moderate, significant, or substantial? When you come to an overall view, you've then got to weigh that against the planning considerations put forward by the applicant on the other side of the final planning balance. Now, in this particular case, the need for renewable energy and energy security is right up there. Substantial weight, and you'll see that from a whole host of appeal decisions, and including in our own decisions, Mr. Chairman. So therefore, for that to close, your level of harm and the evidence you've got for that level to harm must be close to substantial. So in this particular case, we've gone through the report in Appendix A, even we've looked at landscape harm, ecology harm, heritage harm, highway harm, drainage harm, and the others that are in there, Mr. Chairman. And the level of harm is limited to moderate. But at most, I put it at moderate. So therefore, you weigh that against the substantial benefit of renewable energy and energy security issues, which is where the government is going in the NPPF. And I cannot see that the level of harm actually trumps, and in your words, trumps the benefits that arise. So even if you take 160, I would still come to the conclusion this planning commission should be granted.
Yeah, and I know you and I have had this conversation, but what I would say is 160 doesn't say may compromise in, it says will compromise inappropriate development. Unless very special, in such cases, developers will need to demonstrate very special circumstances if projects are to proceed.
Yeah, and in this case, the renewable energy and the energy security issues are those very special circumstances.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Do we have any other? That's not for us.
So I was just going to make a comment with you. I can't understand how we cannot consider fire in amongst planning. I'll use one example, if you like. Glenfield. Everybody's being hung out to dry for what happened at Glenfield. They didn't know what would happen with that planning. I know it isn't the same thing, but they don't necessarily know what's going to happen with mine. I live here. So as a point for the future, I think we can't ignore something like the health and safety and fire regulations in terms of planning. I understand it might be written that way and we may have to adhere to that, but I don't see how we as officers or members can ignore it.
I can see Mr. Brown's got his hand up. And I'll tell you what he's going to say. He's going to say that's covered under Dame Judy Fackett's report and is covered under the Building Safety Act, which is part of the Building Safety Regulator. So whilst I think we all share that fire is a consideration and we should share that fire.
I'll also say, Mr. Chairman, that you can consider it under planning. You do it by conditions, which is what we've got here. Condition number 11, which I said I'm quite happy to expand to include a fire risk management plan or a separate condition for a fire risk management plan on top of condition 11, which is the battery storage safety management. That's the way to do it under planning.
Thank you. Councillor Parson, is that right? Come to council.
Just wondering here, I mean, we seem to have moved from questions to the speakers in the debate.
Stop being
And you know, I would like to participate in the debate, but I'll wait until it's official.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That's fine. So, council, is yours part of the debate or a specific question for the? Right. Okay. So, if we've got no more questions, got away much lighter this time than previously, we will move into debate. Thank you, Councillor Parsons, because you're absolutely correct. So we'll move into the debate and I'll start with yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm going to return to my illusion of the last meeting, that's my example, sorry. When I spoke about there is no energy without risk, because there isn't. I quoted the example of mills, flour mills, which came with the Romans when they arrived in 55 AD, and they linked the idea of the Greeks. And in a flour mill, if the corn ceases to flow, the stones overheat, and the whole lot goes up because there is a lot of the actual flour dust is actually inflammable. You know, that's a very, very old idea. There were fires then with energy risks. In energy, you have to consider the fire risk. The fire risk is considered in this case. You know, experts have looked at this. They have made their sort of judgments. Yeah, the mitigation is there. We know that lithium ion is a volatile ingredients when it goes wrong, but the mitigation is there. There isn't. We're not ignoring the risk to the community. It's there, it's looked at, it's recognised, and it is down. We are not the experts in this. I am not a fire expert. I don't know if anybody here is. But, you know, just sort of giving vague concerns, and I believe a lot of them are very vague here, I don't think is good enough, quite honestly. You know, Mr. Brown has given us the arguments that, in my view, they are compelling. You know, I think to a certain extent, we're fishing around looking for reasons not to look at this properly. That's my view, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wattles.
Yeah, I'd be happy to move this proposal with the unique offer of the fire management plan. But my question before I do that, just for the rest of the members, is what do we expect that to look like? If you can have an idea, I know I'm probably posing this to you, Jeff, and you've admitted that this is unusual, but I'm just wondering what that would look like from, and would, you know, members be involved in a workshop with fire safety, or would it be reliant on fire safety just to give us that information, or the applicants, or I'm just trying to get an idea of what that would be.
It would be a written document, Mr. Chairman. Taking the comments further, clearly, when that written document comes in, we would consult the Warwickshire Fire Rescue Service anyway. We would probably consult National Grid. We'd probably consult a couple of other statutory consultees. If members do want to look at it, and that's their decision, there's no reason why you shouldn't do. But I'd ask you to do so before the Reform of Planning Committees comes in, when in fact that decision will be delegated to me and not to you. So I've asked you to do that. If you do wish to have a meeting, and again, Mr. Chairman, I'm speaking completely off the cuff here. If this goes through with such a condition, I'm quite happy to set up a meeting with local members, chair and vice chair, and opposition spokesperson, with the applicant. I can't speak for the applicant, Mr. Chairman. Just when perhaps something is being drafted, just to show what it might contain. That's completely off the cuff, but that would be my way forward.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jeff. I mean, I'm quite sufficed with that recommendation, but I just feel that there's some members still that may want that clarity, and I think that that's only fair that, you know, as that's been proposed, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I do take on board the comments. You know, there are some planning authorities that have refused it, but they have had the support of their fire and rescue services. I think for me, one of the fundamental concerns that I do have is that, and we know where planning is going. We know the kind of things that are going, but for me, we almost, you know, I'll keep going back to paragraph 160. For me, it's quite clear, and we're almost. My concern is that if you approve it just because it's renewable on Greenbelt, where does that kind of end? I guess that's part of the concern. And for me, the appendix is quite clear. Yes, you've got 154 and 155 where you have to meet a number of recommendations. But paragraph 160 for me quite clearly says that many, you know, elements of many renewable will be comprised inappropriate in the Greenbelt. And I know the Greenbelt's under kind of attack at the moment. And I'm just one of those who still thinks it's important to protect. So that's my 10 pence. Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to second Councillor Wattles in moving the recommendation for approval. I think as an applicant, you have been thrilled. Sorry for a fire pun, but you know, it's been a long night. I think you've provided every bit of information that we have asked you for as a board. I completely understand the fire risk. I think, you know, we've been over and over it. I don't need to say it again. I'm quite happy to second Councillor Wattles' recommendation, the board's recommendation, and just to add, when I went home when this first came to planning and told my kids about this, because I do that, that they were really interested in it and really excited about it. And I think the more that we learn about renewable energy, especially, you know, it's all going to come. It's going to come regardless of what any of us want. It'll take us into the future. I think it's really exciting, and we should be proud that we're having things like that in the borough. And as councillors and as a planning board are supporting applications like this, I think it's really exciting. So I look forward to seeing the results. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So, are there any other comments or anything else in the debate? I've got a recommendation for approval and a seconder. Do I have any other recommendations? Okay, I can't see anything. So based on that, yeah, we'll go to the vote. Can't see top of my glasses. They're all up for reading, but the moment I look up, everyone goes blurry. So we'll go to the vote. All those in favour of approving the recommendation? All those against? I mean, I will vote against because I do genuinely believe in paragraph 160, so I will vote against. Any abstentions? I think. No. So we've got 1, 2. Sorry, can I ask again for those in favour? 2, 3, 4, 6. We've got 6 in favour. Those against? 2, 3, 4, and abstentions. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's carried. Yeah, so that is carried. Okay, thank you. Right, moving on to the next presentation. Go back to this, and this is land south of Watling Street, i.e. Myra. We have 2 speakers, Andy McDonald and Graham Warner in person. They've agreed to share their time, but we'll go to Jeff Stewart first. Jeff.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have the main report in front of you. This in fact had to come to the board because of the receipt of a pre-action protocol letter from the objective solicitors, which effectively was indicating they could judicially review our decisions. That's explained in the report, and our response to that is set out in that report, and the recommendation doesn't change. Previous resolution to grant planning permission that there is. Subsequently, the objector submitted a highway note outlining his alternative for the Drayton Lock Lane measures, and that was circulated at the end of last week. That looks like that, which members should have received at the end of last week. The objector has now also responded to the report that you have in front of you, and therefore a second supplementary report was circulated this morning. That looks like that, with a shorter letter from their solicitors and some photographs at the back. That particular letter indicates that there is highway evidence in their view to show that unreasonable restrictions will result as a consequence of the applicant's proposal at this particular junction. And so therefore they're not changing their view, and members may take their own view on that judgment, but the recommendation from officers is certainly that our position does not change. In other words, we recommend the grant of plan permission subject to conditions and the completion of a 106. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Do we have Mr. Warner? Just explain the rules of public speaking, although I'm sure you're aware because you've heard it a few times. Yeah.
Good evening. You've got between yourselves 3 minutes. I'll remind you at the 2-minute marker that you've got 1 minute remaining. And I'll stop the clock when you start speaking.
Good evening. The planning application for Myron South site, which was submitted in August 2022, is a result of 5 years of intensive preparation and consultation with the respective authorities, key stakeholders and local parishes. Most significantly, this includes the considerable off-site highways improvements proposed, which have been agreed with Leicestershire and Warwickshire counties and National Highways. During the last 15 months, we've held further detailed technical discussions and consultation with the 3 highways authorities focused on agreeing the best solution for Woodford and Drayton Lane junctions. Having considered and modelled multiple potential junction improvements, an optimal solution was agreed, which is fully supported by all 3 highways authorities and also importantly Warwickshire Police in relation to traffic safety. As you're aware, the objectives have promoted a traffic light option for the Drayton Lane junction, a principle previously considered by the highways authorities and was dismissed. It was not supported by the parish council due to the concerns of rat running through the village and the highways authorities purposely wanting to maintain traffic flows on their strategic road network. The traffic data recently provided by the objectors in their recent letter lacks detail and accuracy, making it difficult to scrutinise and validate against previous counts. Questions arise regarding disparity in vehicle trips reported, which now appear significantly higher than those used by the objector to support their own developments. Therefore, the absence of actual survey data and the timing of the submission of it to the council raises real concerns about the transparency and validity of the objector's case. What is important to note, however, is the latest evidence, if correct, shows fewer trips generated than shown in the objector's earlier submission, which you have already considered. Myra South site is a generational opportunity to deliver economic growth of a projected 500 million GBA over the next 5 years and over 2,500 skilled jobs to the borough. We would respectfully ask the members to ensure that by supporting the recommendation in the planning officer's report, there is no further delay in the granting of planning consent, which might cause lasting damage to the successful delivery of the borough's key strategic economic growth initiative and employment generator. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Any questions for speakers? I suppose.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's not really a question, but I'd just like to say thank you. I think I was with Councillor Bell back in Public when they went to a pre-planning meeting, and I got concerns as the board member for Laverston that whenever there was an accident or anything on Woodford Road, it used to back up. And coming from Manchester's only a little village and a narrow road, and I think, you know, going on from those 2 years ago, they've done a hell of a lot of work. And I know my concerns and the concerns of what's now would have done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I can't see any. I've got one thing, and again, a comment for myself. I think the change from B8 to B2 and the encouragement of any B2 type employment, i.e. skilled and those sort of things, is to be encouraged. I think that's something that as an authority we welcome, because it is, I think, as you've used the words generational and advanced engineering and those sort of things, is definitely the types of employment rather than large sheds that we like. So any other questions? Yes.
Sorry, just a little bit of clarification. So on the Drayton Lane, Woodford Lane, are we talking about putting traffic lights in there? Is that what you were saying? Sorry, I'm just looking at the drawing out.
So when the application was originally submitted, we proposed traffic lights on Drayton Lane and on Woodford Lane. And following rounds of consultation with the authorities at that point, the idea that traffic lights should be placed on Drayton Lane and Woodford Lane, actually at that point in time, they weren't comfortable, they were dismissed because of the issues with potentially rat runners coming through Fenny Drayton and being able to get out easier on the A5. And also the highways authorities were trying to contain the main flows of traffic onto the strategic highway. And obviously if you had traffic lights and it was easier to get through, then that would allow other traffic to use kind of smaller routes. So the application was then updated to have a left in, left out turnings on both those junctions.
Okay, sorry, that's clear now.
So, but it has also been updated again since then.
Okay.
To say that Woodford Lane does have traffic lights, but Drayton Lane is now left in, left out.
Okay, thank you. It's just as Councillor Bell was saying earlier, it's such a hot spot there, and there's accidents so frequently there, and it sounds like this is actually a positive move to actually decrease those accidents and get that area safer through this kind of initiative. So great, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? The presenters. Okay, into the debate. Oh, lots of hands there. I was looking that way, so I'll go Councillor Bell first, then I'll go Councillor Parsons. Interesting.
I just wanted to say thank you very much to the applicants for being so responsive to feedback from residents and for looking at the problems we've got on the network. And not only is this a fantastic strategic opportunity for North Warwick to have in its area in terms of employment, etc., but it's also brought real improvements on the strategic road network. And it's such an important development. And as has just been explained, different solutions for both Drayton Lane and Woodford Lane have been looked at by at least 3 highways authorities, there might be more. And the solution that's come up, which is left in, left out at Drayton Lane, traffic lights at Woodford Lane, and sorting the roundabout out by the Red Gate, that is just going to make such a difference for that area. So I just want to say thank you very much for all that you've done, and why don't we just start, do it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, very much like to echo Councillor Bell's statement there. I mean, I think it's quite a number of times we've seen you here now over the years, and I've always been impressed by the purposeful, considerate, and well worked ideas and solutions that you come up with. I think this is yet another one, and yes, we are very grateful to have developers of your time running this. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. What everybody else has said is thank you for all your hard work. But it's got to be echoed over and over. As the other councillor for Hartshill, we know what it's like. I commute to Hinckley by Woodford Lane every day, and I've lost count of the amount of accidents that I've seen. So it's more than welcome. As a road safety advocate, it's something else. But on just a slightly different note, it's always said when you guys come to this board how the changes that and how lucky we are in North Warwickshire to have this huge development. We're so lucky. I work alongside an alternative provision for children who have got, they're not in school for various reasons. I know they're engaging with Myra. There's opportunities here for children with learning difficulties that would not otherwise be open and capable to have highly skilled jobs close to home for these children to have them opportunities. And just that alone, I think is absolutely brilliant. The work that you do, it's fantastic. Neil, he's not here today, I'm subbing for him, told me the work that you've done over so many years on the A5, but particularly Woodford Lane. I just think it's brilliant. And like Councillor Bell said, I want it done yesterday. It's so good. So good luck and thank you for every time you've come for just giving us everything. It's much appreciated from all of us. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any more on the debate? Okay, so we have a recommendation for approval.
Yes.
Do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Clues. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move on. So we're going to move on to last application 64, 66 Line Street, Dordon. We've got Yasmin Collin and Ray Evans to speak. If you want to move yourself down to the speaker's chairs, I will hand over to
Well, thank you, Chair. Again, this is a further deferral from the last report, so that members could visit the site. And the note of that is attached to the report. Members particularly asked that members visited at sort of 5 o'clock in the evening, and actually we visited on Friday, not on a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock. The applicant has then submitted a very full and thorough briefing note, which is attached as an appendix to the report. I don't intend to go through the report, it's summarised in paragraph 2.3 of my report. I just want to point specifically to a couple of points in there. Item number 1, the applicant is saying from correspondence with local estate agents, the average car ownership of HMO residents in Dordon is 22%. So with a 9-room HMO here, on average, you'll get 3 spaces at most, 2-3 spaces, 4 spaces perhaps at the maximum, not the 9 as has been perhaps anticipated by members and other people. And as I say here, that would mean probably 3 or 4 spaces would be adequate. And then point 3, which is the absolute, a substantial piece of information that you have in front of you. It's a lengthy parking survey has been undertaken by the applicant over time, and in terms of the not just times of the hours of the day, but over time in terms of weeks, and that's all detailed for you in front of you in that briefing note, and that demonstrates quite clearly that there is sufficient capacity at the back of the Longstreet properties, which is shown in red here, with an average of 13 spaces regularly being available. And that, as I said, that survey covers all days and a variety of times, including peak hours. So that is significant, Mr. Chairman. I think a lot of weight has to be given to that. And once again, if members are going to look at a parking reason for refusal, then you have to provide the evidence to show that that can be substantiated in rebuttal to what you have in front of you now. Officers do not consider that the evidence in front of you now is there to substantiate that refusal. And therefore, when you take that together with the fallback position, which is again outlined in the report, where this could be used as a 6-person HMO without the need for a planning application, or indeed by a full residential use occupied by 6 independent people, not necessarily living together. When you put all of that together, we don't consider there's a reason for refusal. And that's the reason why, Mr. Chairman, the recommendation remains the same.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Right. Let me explain the rules for public speak.
If you haven't already heard, you've got 3 minutes to speak. I'll start the clock at 2 minutes. No, I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Yasmin, the applicant for this application. Following the last board meeting, we took your concerns seriously and made major efforts to demonstrate our commitment to working with planners, residents, and yourselves. We've carried out a thorough 45-day evidence-based parking survey with video documentation. Also consulted with 5 local estate agents, the rear car park owner, property's previous owner, and current management agent. This rigorous data confirms that the proposal will not materially increase parking pressure or traffic. Our aim is to protect our assets and build a place where tenants can call home by providing high quality, affordable, and professionally managed co-living spaces for professional working tenants. This supports our mission to raise shared housing standards across Dordon and North Warwickshire and support immediate and long-term local employment by attracting and retaining skilled workers, which will directly align with the council's growth objectives. We are committed to being considerate, responsive neighbours and have shown our willingness to listen to residents. And as part of this, we will accommodate requests to share parking spaces where unused, as part of our ongoing efforts to foster positive community relations. Finally, regarding the long-term availability of the rear parking land, there is no realistic likelihood of the land being developed in the foreseeable future. If there has been, your officers would have rightly raised this as a material consideration, and the landowners would not have agreed to a 15-year lease. In the unlikely event the land does become unavailable, we've agreed on the condition that the HMOUs would cease. Thank you for your time. I truly can support your officer's strong recommendation and approve the application.
Now, to continue, I just want to make a few key points. Number one, we're providing 9 off-road dedicated parking spaces, even though we believe that 3 or 4 would be adequate. Number two, these spaces can be provided without displacing current users.
1 minute outstanding.
Number three, on the rare occasions users must park elsewhere, there is ample alternative parking nearby on Long Street and in the public car parks. And number four, proposal directly contributes to managing traffic flows on Long Street by offering off-street parking in an area where most house properties and other HMOs lack such provision. Your officer's report says that substantial waste should be attached to the information we've supplied and that there is no sustainable reason to refuse the planning application. Thank you.
Thank you both. Do we have any questions for the speakers? Absolutely. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the information on the parking survey. I note that that you said that you have got 9 parking spaces. Have you actually signed an agreement really with the in relation to the parking going forward? Have you got a lease in place?
No, so we've agreed that we've can have a 15 years lease once obviously the planning permits, we will then sign the lease. But obviously it's a lot of money, you know, to get solicitors and stuff involved. So it's there, the offer's on the table. We just need to wait for the planning act to get approved before we sign the lease. But the offer's there and it's all documented as well.
You mentioned about the being significant alternatives to parking. I'll have to dispute that. Whilst there's Long Street car park and also Derrick Avenue car park, there were still cars parking on grass verges all up and down that street. It's a major issue. So that's one thing I would just like to address. In terms of what you're planning on doing on the back of the property, absolutely, you know, that's great, that's fantastic. But I just wanted to clarify that whatever you do, you will not solve parking issues along that street. And whether extra vehicles add to those pressures or not, it's really quite irrelevant. There are parking issues on that street. So I'd just like to take a little bit of clarity on your point from that, because I know I live on that street and I can walk up and down that street and see cars parked on grass verges, parked on double yellow lines. There's a pinch point near the property. However, saying all that, I'm actually quite in favour of this proposal. I think it's well thought out, you've done a really good job on it. I think you've done a lot of background work on it. However, I do take umbrage with the fact that it won't add to any extra parking issues at that street, because the parking issues are already there. You're not going to diminish them. You're not going to get rid of them. They're there. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, we welcome your overriding support for the proposals. But of course, we're not claiming that this proposal will solve every problem on Long Street, but I think we've done all we possibly can to demonstrate that there will be parking available and that parking can be provided for municipalities.
Sorry, can I just add to that? So I mean, I personally not seen a lot of cars, and I'll be doing service there, you know, every day. I've not seen cars parked, many parked on grass verges. And if, and,
Sorry,
no, there isn't. Yeah, I've seen some, not many though. And if it has happened, it's out of our control. It's not, you know, it's the grass is not in our control. What we can control is we will have briefing notes in place for our tenants to make sure this will never happen with our tenants. I mean, I don't understand why that would happen if they've got parking spaces along the back anyway. And if that was going to be an issue, I'm sure highway or traffic management would have raised that as a safety concern. But we have more than enough and sufficient parking spaces along the back to facilitate everyone. There is more than enough I mean, we've offered 9 parking spaces, but from the consultation that we've had with the 5 local estate agents, it only shows that between 2 and 4 parking spaces is actually more than adequate. And we've provided more than enough of spaces for that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to come back to Councillor Ridley, because I think you wanted to follow up on the point, and then Councillor Waffles, I'll come to you.
Thank you. Hello, sorry. I've just we all want affordable accommodation, so thank you for offering that. Can I just ask how much will the rent be? How much is a 1-bedroom property or room in your?
Yeah, sure. It'll be between 600 for some of the smaller bedrooms, and then it will vary up until around 850 for some of the larger bedrooms with better facilities.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Waffles.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just interested, I'm picking up on a comment that you said that if you weren't using the 9 spaces that you'd let others, which is a great idea, but having heard the issues with that they have with parking on that street, how would you police that, or how would you sort of, you know, make sure that the tenants get there first and, you know, they've got priority so that there's no arguments or disputes, because we obviously don't want to encourage that side of it either. So how would that be looked at? Thank you.
Yeah, well, we're doing what we can to foster good working relationships with the locals. It's a genuine offer that if we find that perhaps only 3 of the 9 spaces are needed, we'd be quite amenable to allowing local residents to use those other spaces, but purely on a goodwill basis. And in terms of the proper use of the area, I don't think we need anything draconian at all. I think that the local residents will understand what we're doing. We'll have clear signs available. The places will be marked out, and residents will have access to the ASMEN to discuss any problems.
Kelvin's going to go back on. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I just want to highlight also the fact is that there isn't proper signs and marked bays at the moment. Hence why there might be, you know, parking all over the place, but I'm sure that could be heavily avoided if that was in place, which we will wait for that will in place before, you know, anything before any tenants were to start living there. Having said that, we've also, as per our report, we've been in touch with the previous owners, which are the Portsmouth Group Homes. It's on the report. They have confirmed that during their ownership of the property, they never had any marked or signage on any of their allocated spaces, and there have never been any complaints or any conflicts or interests in the years that they've been parking there from anyone. So I don't see that being an issue with us. But having said that, if, you know, in the rare cases that there are going to be any issues, I live and I work very, very close by to the property. I can attend very, very quickly if needs to be to respond to any sort of issues. I want to also mention that I have put on the report as well, to minimise disruption. I'm also happy to put If we do see any regular unauthorised users parking on the car park, we're happy to put a 2 months notice in place just to let them know that, you know, you don't have any rights to park there and they have more than enough time to go and find alternative parking elsewhere. Also, I would like to mention that landowners, they've, you know, if they were to ever enforce anything in the future, they, you know, what the individual's going to do then, they're still going to have to find secure parking elsewhere. They're either going to have to vacate the area or they're going to have to enter into a lease agreement like we do. So it doesn't make any difference to what we do.
Can I respond? Sorry. So first of all, just to go back on your point about positive group homes, I know them well. My mum used to work with that organisation for many years, and just to make members clear that probably the residents wouldn't be needing cars. I would just say being politically correct, just to say. Anyway, moving on. My question was going to be, if 9 members of the public were to park in your 9 spaces and your resident pulled in for a space, my point about policing it, I mean, it was a soft use of the word policing, but would that not cause a disruption? I mean, it's great that you're offering it, and I don't want to sound like I'm being negative Nelly, but I do understand the problems that are on that street. And I just don't want, I'm just foreseeing potential problems if, you know, your goodwill has been exploited, let's say, and the residents around the area have utilised all the spaces, and then your tenant comes into park. You know what I'm saying? What's going to happen? You talk about having an order put in, but I believe that it's not just as simple as saying, well, you've got 2 months' notice. I think you might have to.
You're saying that
a little bit better. Thank you.
I do understand what you're saying, but you've known, as you can see in our survey, I mean, it's a very expensive, extensive survey. It's 45 days that we've taken every single day from pretty much the last board meeting back in April that we've done. And it shows that every single day there is more than at least 9 parking spaces there. So we're not displacing anyone. We're not displacing lawful users. We're not displacing unauthorised users either. And again, reiterating obviously what I said earlier, the local estate agents, we've consulted with 5 of them, and they've mentioned that HMOs across the Midlands, on average, there's only 22% of people who actually own a car who live in a HMO, which equates to between 2 to 3 spaces. And our evidence shows that every single day, there's not a time in the day where there's never been less than 8 or 9 parking spaces. So,
could I just add briefly, we really don't anticipate any problems with local people. In practice, probably only 3 of the parking spaces will be utilised by the residents of the HMO. If it happens to be 9, we've catered for that. So we've got a big safety margin. Plus the intention to get on with our neighbours.
Yeah. No, and don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking it. I'm just trying to give a bit of a heads up about potential problem that could be created by your goodwill in the first place, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm a Polesworth councillor, so I know that I'm Polesworth West, so I'm right up on the border, and I go past that daily. So I totally understand where you are and what's happening. Thank you.
Anyway, do we have any more questions? Councillor Fowler.
Thank you. It's just going on what Councillor Waffles has said, for those thinking all the time. You've got 9 rooms and 10 parking spaces. And similarly, I'm just wondering, how do you ensure that those, who we say 10 spaces, are solely for the residents of 65 to 66 at the rear? Because I mean, otherwise, as Councillor Waffles said, that anybody can go, go park there. May cause a problem if visitors came along or what have you. So how do you demarcate them and say, is it by registration? Is it by room number or 64 to 66? Just explain that to me, please.
Okay, so, yeah, I'm not quite sure where the number 10 came from. It's
It's nine.
9 bedrooms and 9 parking spaces.
So
I think it's 10.
I think that was the old.
Yeah, just the slightly say.
Okay, 9 then.
Okay, but it's 9. And we don't think that, you know, on a day-to-day basis, those 9 spaces will be used, as I said before. I think in terms of demarcating the parking spaces, I think it's going to be fairly simple. We haven't worked it out in detail, but I think a post with a notice on saying HMO what, room number 1, room number 2. I think it's probably going to be that simple.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, the last question. There was a lady, isn't there, and from Longstreet that's you allowing to park in one of your spaces at the moment.
Yeah.
She's the one that sent in the letter of support.
Yeah.
When your occupants come and park in their spaces, is she going to have to learn parking Longstreet again?
Yeah, and she's fully aware of that as well, and she's more than happy for that to happen. And I mean, like I said earlier, there's probably going to be half the noise, probably like less than half of that going to be filled by tenants, I would imagine. So if it's not going to be filled, then she's more than welcome to park there for as long as she wants to. But she will be notified if she has to move, and she's totally aware of that and happy about that as well.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you. Move to the debate. If there is anything left to debate. Anything? Councillor Ridley.
Sorry. Was the Dordon Neighbourhood Plan, DNP 13, states development proposals in Longstreet, which is part of the site that we say, will need to demonstrate that parking arrangements are accommodated off street. The applicant has done this to a certain extent, but any member that came to the site visit will see that actually to call it a parking arrangement is very poor. It is an unmade dirt track, which has been the potholes have been filled in by a gentleman that lives at the end of the track. There are large ponds almost covered with bramble, but one of the people that lives along Longstreet is actually dug out so he can accommodate to park his car. The site is part of H4. Now it has got an option on it for H4. H4 needs to come forward for our local plan. H4 needs a master plan. So going forward, this land is not going to be sustainable for parking. Highway said in the report that as long as the parking is allowed there in perpetuity, then they're happy to support it. At the minute, we've got a lease for potentially 15 years unless the land comes forward. And then where does the parking go? I agree completely with Councillor Chapman. Longstreet is a living nightmare. The actual figures that have been in the parking, looking in this parking survey, do not take account of, as Councillor Chapman says, the vehicles that are parking on grass verges, the vehicles that are parking on double yellow lines and don't allow the emergency vehicles to be able to get through. They don't allow for the school buses that come up. They don't allow for the deliveries to the co-op or to the deliveries to building materials and things. It is absolutely hell on earth when you have to drive down Longstreet between certain times of the day. Any parking that is going to add to this is just a nightmare for the people that have to commute down Longstreet in the morning, for all the villages, but for anybody that has to deliver or work down there, it is a nightmare. So consequently, our other roads, the B5000 coming through the other villages and all the roads, all the bridges, it's just the congestion there is mad, because people will literally avoid having to go down Longstreet, as Councillor Bell will have testified to. I think the answer was, I'm never going to go down Longstreet as long as I live. But joking aside, that we had to apply for Warwickshire County Council funding. And we put fencing around the bungalows for old people at the bottom of Long Street, because the HMOs opposite were parking on the grass verges and endangering those disabled elderly people that were living in the bungalows. It is a living hell for so many people. And I did say tonight I'd represent those people that really are suffering as a consequence. There was social media all over the weekend and last week about the number of times that cars on Long Streets have been damaged, and the fact that vehicles don't stop, that there's that people opening their front doors onto Long Street are at danger of getting wiped up by vehicles that mount the pavement. There is no happy ending to this. There is no happy ending, and I've got to see how. When I spoke to a director from Savills, he sent me an email saying Mrs. Kong has been offered a 5-year lease. Signage and space marking will be carried out by Mrs. King, and residents are going to be self-policed. Well, there's many residents down there that have applied for parking in the light of all of these 9 spaces coming up, and they've been told to wait. So I can only see problems going forward. So as far as I'm concerned, I know that if that there would be allowed to be six residents there. But if I can at least stop some of the extra parking on there without proper authority, then I would say I cannot support this application.
Right, I've got Councillor Chapman, and then I'll come back to Councillor Waffles. Don't I?
Just to come back on Councillor Ridley's point about the actual sort of dirt track that is behind those properties. It's a single track as well, so I have concerns about traffic coming in and traffic going out, because there really isn't any passing places. And I do know from past experience, well, not my experience, but past experience from some of the people that have lived on that side, that have taken their cars and put them around the back. There's no lighting around there. There's no security. And I do know that there has been vehicles broken into and stolen from around there. So they're just some of the issues that the residents will have. But I think, as Councillor Ridley's quite rightly pointed out, the issues really are, and it's quite interesting when Councillor Ridley said about residents opening their front doors onto the pavement and cars mounting that pavement. That is exactly where that pinch point is. It's right in front of this property. People walk out their front doors onto a path, a public footpath. You've only got to be coming out with a pushchair, and you've got an accident waiting to happen. So there's quite a few issues just in that area alone. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, I concur with both Councillor Ridley and Councillor Chapman. As I say, from my residents' point of view, I have to speak and say that I would be, really apprehensive about supporting this, because if we're adding more cars into the mix, and I know that you've specified that there's averages and, they're lower, but in the other sense, you also mentioned that it would be encouraging skilled workers. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but skilled workers normally would have their own vehicles, correct me if I'm wrong, in which case, that's potentially 9 there. And as Councillor Ridley said, where would they go if that retraction of the land was there? And the safety, that was exactly what I was going to say as well, Councillor Chapman. I do know of cases that have been, my niece lives on that road as well, and I know that there's a lot of issues with car vandalism and so on in these behind the terrace spaces. So yeah, thank you.
So am I allowed to speak?
No, unfortunately not. So, any other comments from anyone else? Just about, I was going to say, can you clarify that? I mean, obviously, there's been lots of concerns raised about the parking. There's been a demonstration about the parking from the applicant. Where does that sit in the consideration?
Just a couple of comments, Mr. Chairman. It's not the applicant's role to solve the problems on Long Street. We know that from all planning applications, whether it's drainage, highways, or whatever, they've got to be effectively self-contained. And particularly the drainage one is the best example. As you know, we have sustainable drainage systems on site in order with all the water to do it. If there is an issue, then you mitigate off-site. Highways, you do all the mitigation on site. If there's a residual problem, then you mitigate off site. So it's not the applicant's responsibility, duty or role here to help resolve issues on Long Street. They have to resolve their own problems, if you see what I mean. In this particular case, the evidence that you've got, unless members have got evidence to show that these spaces, there are no spaces available at all times of the day along here, it's going to be very difficult to sustain a reason for refusal on parking grounds, as I said. And also to pick up on the point about the length of period of the licence. Condition 7 was specifically designed for that purpose. The car parking provision shall remain available solely for use by residents of the property covered by the permission. Should any part of this permission no longer be available for this purpose, the approved use of the property as a larger house in multiple occupation shall cease immediately. So there's an enforcement issue there, which we can follow through. But the important thing is you can't follow it through unless there's the condition. And the condition is very explicit. In effect, it's a 15-year planning permission.
So to just clarify that, on Councillor Ridley's point, if H4 came forward, the permission for the HMO would cease.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, you're speculating what might happen. We cannot do that.
So that's what the condition says. If that land no longer becomes available,
the condition says if this car parking provision is not available, then the use shall cease.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ridley.
Yeah, thank you. But obviously, one of our statutory consultees, Highways, said that they would approve this if the parking was there in perpetuity. That isn't the case, obviously. Just 15 years at the moment.
Okay. If I'm reading that right, basically the HMO disappears if that changes. That's a waffles.
Yeah, just an observation on that. That would make 9 people homeless then, potentially. No, but I meant if the HMO status was removed, then potentially it'd make the 9 people homeless.
Chairman, that's incorrect. That's because, as I said before, the fallback position is this house can be used for 6 people under normal fallback position. It can also be used by as a normal dwelling house for 6 people living together. They needn't be related, as long as they're living together. So therefore, in fact, it wouldn't be 9 people. It wouldn't be 9 people homeless. This property could still be used for 6 with no parking at all.
Just the 3 then. That's all right.
Okay, right. Okay. Any other comments or thoughts in the debate? See any hands? So we have a recommendation from officers to approve. Do I have a proposer for that? Can't see anyone. I mean, if not, do we have any other proposals? Okay, Councillor Ridley.
I have a proposal for refusal, please.
Okay, do we have second that? Councillor Wapples is seconded. We'll go through what's the process here. We don't have a recommend. Obviously, the officer's recommendation is for approval. I've not got a proposal seconder for that.
You go for refusal.
Yeah.
But you need the evidence as well. So on what basis are you refusing the application?
Okay, so I think we need to understand on what basis are you proposing refusal, Councillor Bennett.
Right, okay, it's against DNP 13. I don't believe the parking is, as the statutory highway authority has said, that it needs to be in perpetuity. Even in the best case scenario, we're only for up to 15 years. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that the criteria has been met in relation to parking and transport and highways functions, etc.
Councillor Reid.
Would it be possible to hear from Jeff, his kind of view on that as a reason for?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The reason for refusal, Mr. Chairman, as I understand, is to do with car parking. You would have to refuse it on the ground there's insufficient car parking for this particular development. And that's one of the reasons why officers are not recommending it for refusal. There is sufficient and adequate car parking for this particular proposal. I'm just looking to see. No, the car parking policy in the local plan doesn't help at all. There is the car parking requirements here do meet our standards. Again, that's another reason for not recommending it for refusal. I'd be very reluctant to run a refusal based on car parking when you have the survey information from the applicant. You have the fact that this could be used for six person HMO or a 6-person normal dwelling house who could have 6 cars without the need for a planning application at all.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
So are you saying that the reason put forward by Councillor Ridley would not be an adequate reason? Is that in your view?
In my view, it wouldn't be sustainable as appeal, no.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got officer recommendation for approval. We've got no proposal or seconder for that. We've got a recommendation for refusal and a seconder for refusal. So we'll go with that vote first. So all those in favour of refusal? 6. We've got 6. All those against the recommendation for refusal? We've got 1, 2, and all those abstaining. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's carried for refusal. That's carried for refusal. Okay. Right. Moving on. Sorry. Next on the agenda. Mr. Brown, is appeal update.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this report on 2 recent appeal decisions. I can answer any questions if members have them.
Are there any questions? Nice to you there. And that report's just for noting. Okay, right, everyone happy that we note that report? Okay, right, next on the agenda, we go back to exclusion of the press and public. Consider in accordance with section 100A for the Local Government Act 1972, whether it's in the public interest that the public interest be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in section 12A to the Act. Can I have a proposal for that, please? You can have a seconder. Councillor Chapman, all those in favour? Thank you very much.